Hello, mortgage fans. So it was another bumper weekend of sport. For any rugby fans like myself, I probably really enjoyed the pulsating Lions win. Fantastic win, so very happy with that one. And also we've got the joy of the Olympics as well. Being a former athlete, always look out for that one. Well, it does bring a sort of weird array of sports. I'm now up on my technicalities of taekwondo and the scoring of surfing. You certainly can't beat the Olympics when it comes to diversity of sport. But in the mortgage world, probably not quite the same razzmatazz, but some big themes to sort of talk about this week. So I'll dive straight into it. The first one is that mortgage rates continue to fall. Almost every week, I sort of feel like I'm sat here saying mortgage rates won't go much lower, and then they do. So just to sort of iron something out, there's two things I want to talk about. Is one, actually where rates have got to, but then secondly, why I'm not so stupid as it may first seem. So what made all the headlines last week, was Nationwide. They bought out market-leading 2-year and 5-year rates. The 5-year being at 0.99% and the 2-year being at 0.91%. Both market-leading and both record-breaking. Mortgage rates have never been that low. To qualify for that, you do need a 40% deposit. The maximum loan, I believe, is £1 million, and the arrangement fee is £1,499, and they throw in a free survey as well. So this very much suits sort of larger loans. So obviously that made a lot of press. Mortgage rates keep going lower. So I just wanted to sort of qualify really what I mean by mortgage rates won't get much lower. So it's all about timing. When I look at mortgage rates specifically and what's going on with money markets, I'm really looking over something like a 2 or a 5-year horizon, because for the vast majority of people, you will come to rearrange your loan every 2 to 5 years. You don't do it every week, every month, every year even. So these short-term sort of movements, so whether we're at the very lowest end of the market now or we'll be there very soon, is sort of a bit irrelevant. If you're looking to arrange your mortgage this year, I think whatever you end up with this year will probably be the lowest mortgage rate you ever achieve, unless you have a smaller deposit, and that's a slightly different conversation I won't get into now. So that's really what I mean by rates being the lowest they're going to be, because by the time you come to the next refinance, rates will probably be higher. And again, just sort of to qualify that as well, we'll look at money markets a bit later on, but there's a very good article on Bloomberg a couple of weeks back, and this is off the back of increasing inflation rates and also increasing GDP. So I won't rehash this argument I've had a few times now, but typically, when you see inflation going up and GDP going up together, what you typically do is raise interest rates, but we're not in normal times. So the point of this Bloomberg article was that HSBC, Credit Suisse, Bank of America, and others have all revised their expectation for the UK base rate to go up between once and twice next year, potentially even the end of this year. So again, it all adds weight to that argument that interest rates are about as low as they're going to be. Now, the last factor as well is that mortgage lenders tend to do something called tranching. So they're not exposed to day-to-day movements in money markets. They'll buy money that will typically last 2 to 3 months. So the mortgage market will always be 2 to 3 months behind where money market rates are. Now, as you can tell by the rates being lent out now, it's cheaper 2-3 months ago than it was today. Money markets have all moved on a little bit, especially with this expectation the base rate might move up certainly sort of next year. So that's really what I mean by rates being the lowest they're going to be, is if you're arranging your mortgage this year, it's probably the lowest rate you're going to get, again, subject to that higher LTV thing. So if I could accurately predict the bottom of the market, I suppose I'd be a lot wealthier. I wouldn't be doing this for a living, I'd be doing something else. But I certainly think we're getting toward the bottom of this cycle, specifically in the time frames in which people need to move for mortgages. So second main headline is house sales break records in June. Figures from HMRC confirmed pretty much what everybody knew, is that we had the most transactions ever in 1 month. I believe it was a total of 213,120, to be very specific, sales were completed in the month of June. That was 216% higher than the month sort of this time last year, and also 108% higher than in May as well. So just smashing all sorts of records. I think records actually go back to 2005, I believe, and it's the biggest amount of transactions ever. So really confirming what we knew. The interesting thing is that going to create a housing bubble? But what most people are reporting, and again, I've talked about this quite a lot, if you look at RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, they're consistently saying that demand is outstripping supply so they can't see house prices going backwards anytime soon. In fact, they expect them to continue to rise through the remainder of the year. Okay, the third headline then is cladding rules clarified. So this is actually some rare good news for anyone that's got a flat with some cladding on. Anyone who's in this position will know, or if you've been following this in the press, following Grenfell disaster, there's been a big audit of the cladding on property. So it's absolutely right to do all those things, but it's created some really weird situations. Specifically, there was a rule brought in that if your property was above 18 metres, the requirements are different than if it was below 18 metres. And there's this whole sort of no man's land where some lenders were insisting on what was called an EWS1 form, which is an external wall survey 1 form. So that sort of says what's the risk of fire. Now, it's been deemed that that's low risk. And what's been really helpful this week is the government has clarified the rules that if your building is under 18 metres, there is no need to provide that form or the additional safety checks. So it's exempt from that part of the process. Now, specifically in London, a lot of developments were or elder properties were in that area, so that will really, really help a lot of people, because if you're in that situation, you had a property you potentially couldn't reinsure, you couldn't sell, it was a really, really difficult situation. All the big lenders, I think Barclays, HSBC and Lloyds came straight out, so it's great news for them because it clarifies it for them, makes it easier. So it's potentially another beginning in the end of this big saga. So the properties above that height level, so anything above 18 metres, that work does need to be carried out. There are separate issues around that with the freeholders. I completely get that, but at least it's some movement forward. It will free people up, and hopefully now it's just a matter of time till that retrospective work is done. And most importantly, people are living in safe properties. So I know it's an inconvenience for many people, and I know the risk is low. However, if you own one of those properties, you really want to make sure it's safe for yourself and certainly when you sell it on to. I won't get into the whole debate around the role builders play. That would be a long topic for another time. So looking at what that means for interest rates, so I've talked about this quite a bit at the outset. So I won't go on about it too much. What we're seeing in money markets, again, is they're all pretty much up. 2-year swap rates up by 0.014 to 0.044%. 5-year money is up by 0.01% to 0.689. Bank of England was held at the last meeting, and sterling, 3-month sterling LIBOR down marginally 0.003 to 0.073. That's been pretty consistent at that level for a while now. Now, how that translates into best rates, I mentioned with Nationwide, they're top dog at the moment, with 2-year money at 2-year money at 0.91%, 5-year money at 0.99%. There's also variable rates of 0.99% as well. If you're looking at getting a buy-to-let, that starts from 1.19% also. Same caveat always sits on this. The actual rate you'll be offered will be dependent on your personal circumstances and also the level of deposit. To get those rates, you typically need a 40% deposit. And again, I think with a 95% mortgage, so if you've just got a 5% deposit, I believe the best rate is about 3.34. So you probably sit anywhere in between those two brackets, dependent on your situation and the amount of deposit you have. Okay, last thing that we're going to put on our website. So if you I'll put the link into this as well in the notes. Put a new video together just for a introduction into the company, really, and what you can expect for us. One thing we do really pride ourselves on is our personalised mortgage advice. We're not a sausage factory. We're not very formulaic in how we do things. We're far more interested in talking to you and helping you as an individual. So I've just put this short video together to talk through all those things. So I'll put the link in the comments. It will soon be on a revamped homepage. So I'll talk about that when it's ready, and I hope you enjoy it. So that's me for this week. Catch up with you next.